Welcome to Late Great Classics, a podcast where we talk all things classic cars, from the brilliant minds who design these cars, those who ushered the hobby into where it is today, those who currently work in the hobby, and those that are bringing the hobby into the next generation. My name is John Ruff. I'm your host. This podcast is sponsored by Southeast Chevy Parts. If you own a 1955 to 1970 full-size Chevy and you need a part, we probably have it. Visit southeastchevyparts.com and check us out. This podcast is powered by Push Button Creative Audio. Right here in Central Florida, we do brands. We do audio for brands all across the country. If you need audio branding for your brand, give us a look at pushbuttonproductions.com. I'm really excited about our guest today. We've been back and forth with this guest for over a month. I'm so excited to finally get him on. David W. Temple, thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to chat with you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I dug this out today, and I want to present it to the audience.
Oh.
And so it's a simple question. You know, will people line the streets to see what you drove? And this day and age, most cars are throwaways, so the answer is probably no. But it just brings up a question to me, and I've gotten the question before from other people who are new to the hobby or younger people, and they say, what makes these cars so special? What makes them so unique? And I'll throw that out to you just so we can get the episode started.
Well, I don't think it's a long-winded answer to that. Back in the day, the glory days of the automobile, styling was the number one consideration.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Cars are styled today to look pretty much all the same. And it's dictated by government regulation. Every car must meet a standard of, coefficient of drag standard. And therefore, the wind tunnel is going to dictate the shape of the automobile.
Wow.
And it's about, miles per gallon.
Sure. Sure.
So, therefore, all the cars look a lot alike. It's hard, at least for me, it's hard for me to tell one car from another. I don't know if it's a foreign car or an American car.
Yeah, I mean, even as close, if you look back at the 80s and 90s, you could still tell them apart. I mean, it was pretty drastic. You could tell what was domestic and versus import. And today it's getting pretty hard to tell them apart. I mean, as a car guy, I can, still kind of tell. But man, it's getting pretty difficult.
Yeah. Now, there's a few exceptions. A modern Camaro is easily recognizable. But what does it look like? It looks a lot like a 69 Camaro.
Sure.
Of course, they went out of production recently, but still, there's a lot of them on the road, and they're instantly recognizable. Corvette's instantly recognizable. Doesn't matter
for sure
what year it is, it's recognizable.
Yeah.
There are cars like that. There are exceptions. A Challenger, instantly recognizable.
Would love to kick it off by, getting a little bit about who you are and your background information and how you got to be where you are today.
Okay, well, I didn't go to school to be a journalist. I remember high school assignment, write a 300-word essay on, whatever. 300 words, oh my gosh, well, it's just a few paragraphs. That's, 10 sentences. It's nothing. But I hated that sort of thing. And now, I've written 55, 60,000 word books.
Wow.
Not something I saw myself doing when I was in high school. And college, I majored in business. And again, no thought of writing.
Where'd you go to college?
Stephen F. Austin. It's in Nacogdoches, Texas, which is still East Texas. It's south of here, about 70 miles. We called it Naca Nowhere back in the day. It's a small town nobody had ever heard of. But one day, I think probably a Saturday morning, I was looking at an issue of Muscle Car Review, and just out of the blue, I thought, I can do this. I can write these articles, take these pictures, and so that's where it launched.
Nice.
Grab a magazine. No thought like that. I'm going to read the articles, open it up, and, 5 minutes into it, I can do this. Well, it took a little more than just I can do this. Fast forward several months later, I'm at SFA, got a new roommate, and I don't even know how the subject came up, but I'd said something about trying to do photography and writing for car magazines. And they said, well, I had a teacher last semester who used to be a photographer for Life magazine. Well, there's a guy that knows something about photography, Life magazine. Well, it was within a day or two, I was knocking on that professor's door and showed him my work. He gave me more detailed specifics on what to do. So I practiced on my own car. And after, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, he said, I think you got it now. And since then, I've wondered, did he really think I had gotten it by then, or was he just getting tired of me visiting his office?
He's like, yeah, you're good. You're doing good, kid.
Go. but the third try was a charm. I got my pictures published in Cars and Parts magazine.
Wow.
And I got the princely sum of $100. And I think I had something like $67 in film and processing and gas, going back and forth. But
right.
Hey, it was a start.
And you had a good time.
Yeah. And hey, it was fun. And that's all
right.
it was for a long time. It was just fun.
So what was your first car?
My first car was a 78 Monza hatchback. It was, I think, a 3-year-old car when I got it. I loved the car, but looking back, I wouldn't mind having one again if it had a V8. I had the 6-cylinder V6, and it had all of, I think they're exaggerating, but supposedly it had 90 horsepower. I don't think it even had that.
Right.
I think if it had gotten a couple of squirrels to, help push, I think I could have felt, the little extra effort. And I would turn the AC off in the summer, sitting at a stoplight. Before I took off, I'd kill the AC switch to help me accelerate because it robs, that much power.
Oh, yeah.
But, it was my first car. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Bright yellow, black interior.
Wow. And where'd you get it?
It's used car lot off of the Buckstaff, Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth. But it was on their used car lot. And
sure.
Buckstaff's gone. Been gone a long time, but I can still remember driving off the lot. Cost $2,500.
Okay.
And I got, I think that was fall of 80, spring 82, it got totaled.
Oh, man.
From by 9. It
Bummer.
Shortened it a couple of feet. Rear bumper was against the rear wheels. Really, against, not almost, but all the way there. Had a fold down back seat, and I'd had it folded down. It had done it like that.
Okay.
So, that's how bad the impact was. Ruptured the fuel tank. Fortunately, there was no fire. I walked away.
Seriously. What was your next car?
Next car, well, and actually my next car turned out to be the next day. My dad started driving my mom's car, and I started driving what had been his car, which was nothing really special, just a 78 Buick LeSabre, 4-door sedan. Nothing that excited a young guy, but it was transportation.
That's right.
And my mom didn't really need to leave the house that much during the afternoon, so he drove the 67 Galaxy 500 that he bought new.
Oh, wow.
That she had been driving, and a car that I still have to this day.
Do you really?
Mm-hmm.
You drive that car every day?
Yes.
Oh,
every
that's
day.
freaking
Everywhere
awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's been featured. I've written about it in multiple magazines. So.
Now, did you restore it?
I didn't do much myself. I had it professionally done.
at what point did this car, like, at some point it became special and you're like, I'm going to keep this car forever? Like,
Yeah,
what was that point?
that was 1983. I was
Okay.
19 years old.
Yeah.
I'd been wanting an old car. I just loved them. Heck, they weren't really old cars back when I was a kid, like a 64 Galaxy 500. I
Yeah.
love the front end on those cars. Those little three crinkles in the grill and just the grill. The whole design, the creases down the side, the fastback roof line.
Yeah.
These were just 3, 4, 5-year-old used cars when I saw them.
Sure.
Man, they're just beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I guess I just fascinated. There's a picture of me at Christmas, I guess 2.5 years old, and I'm holding a tin car, toy. Looks like it's a police, has the word police on it or something. Anyway, holding a tin automobile, toy car in my hands at 2.5. So I guess it's just genetic.
Sure. Makes sense. So for the love of cars and for classics being what they are, and I've been a classic car guy my whole life, and I knew that Harley Earl was a big name in classic cars, but after reading your book, I just have such a profound appreciation for who he was and what he did. And I would love to just kind of start off by asking, how did you begin your research into Harley Earl? Why Harley Earl? Like, what led you down that path?
Well, again, this goes back to my dad. He was in the Air Force from 51 to 54, and he was stationed at Travis, which is south of San Francisco. I think it's an hour drive south. Fairfield, I think, is the nearest town that the base is close to. Anyway, in early May of 53, the GM Motorama came to San Francisco. Motorama was a traveling exhibition, all GM products, everything, Frigidaire, kitchen, refrigerators, electromotive, the diesel engines, everything about GM was on display. And it was a free show. And elaborate displays, beautiful carpeting, backdrop. It took about 100 truck caravan to move all the cars and equipment. Turntables for the cars, the lighting, artwork. So there's a major production, a 5-6 city tour from 53 to 56. Then there were some sporadic motoramas after that. Anyway, he went to the one in San Francisco in 53, and he was showing me his Air Force scrapbook, photographs that he had taken, like when he was on leave and in New Mexico with some friends, and had pictures of, can't think of the name of it, the road race in Mexico, Pan American Road Race, I think is what it was called.
Okay.
Pictures of the Lincoln, is a blur, but Lincoln 53 Lincoln, I guess, going by. And then there were these 5 photographs from the GM Motorama. What are these cars? Well, the GM LeSabre was one of them, Buick XT300, the Corvette prototype, 1953 Le Mans, and 1953 Wildcat, Buick Wildcat, were the cars in the pictures.
Wow.
And those cars, they just awed me. And
I bet.
And these were one-of-a-kind cars of concept cars, or I think he used the term dream cars, not, in other words, not put in production.
Sure.
But what happened to those? They crushed them. I was just sick.
Yeah.
Just sick.
Sure.
Can't believe. Well, it turned out that wasn't altogether true. Some cars were scrapped, some were kept. Didn't quite seem like there was any real rhyme or reason exactly to what was saved. I can understand why they kept the LeSabre, Harley Earl's personal car.
That was a cool car.
For some years, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it had some historical significance to GM. They kept it. There's different reasons why some of them got saved. We could go off an hour at least on all of that, but the bottom line is that those pictures just stuck in my mind. And it's not that they were great photos. You couldn't get back far enough. It's just the fin on the 53 Wildcat. That's kind of just a close-up. It's what he got of that.
Right.
And kind of a sort of a direct frontal view of the Corvette. But I mean, just what I could see just amazed me. So years and years later, mid-90s, I guess it was, so 20 years later, I heard about a book on the Motorama coming out. Oh, good. This will tell me what happened to all the cars, what cars
Sure.
it had, and written by a guy named Berghoff. Can't think of his first name right now. Anyway, I was expecting, this book about the cars. Well, actually, it was a book about the background, the setting up, delivering the cars, things that happen. It was interesting.
Right.
There was nothing wrong with the book. It just wasn't what I expected.
Right.
And I was thinking, gosh, I wish there was a book about the cars themselves, because all I could ever find was just little blurbs, a little paragraph, just the bare minimum of facts. Little did I know I would end up writing the book roughly another 20 years later.
Yeah.
But it all began, the first book began with, I don't know if he's got to hold this in the right position, Car Collector magazine, a three-part article. I didn't even know it was going to be a 3-part article. I was just going to write an article about the mysteries of the Motorama, the cars that don't know what happened to them, whether they still exist or not.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently that struck a nerve with some people. They got editors got a lot of letters about that series of articles.
Really?
One guy in Michigan, a guy named Perkins, he and his brother had seats from the 53 old Starfire, front bench seat out of apparently two different Starfires.
Okay.
Their father was an Olds engineer, and he bought them at an old salvage auction. Just curiosity. Put them on the casters so they could move them around.
Sure.
So anyway, sent a picture of one of the seats. So there was at least something of the car that still existed. And he said when the guy that he and his brother, when they got to working for GM, or at least John Perkins did, he tried to find out, well, what happened to these two cars? And his search led to the guy that had cut them up.
Wow.
Said, yeah, I had to cut up those cars. So then he thought maybe along with there was a seat and then a backup seat in case something happened to the upholstery. He didn't realize there were two of them. And then he got out his dad's logbook, Oldsmobile engineering logbook, and it showed 3 of the Starfires were built. Just learned that just from that article, or series of articles.
Okay.
And another guy sent in a picture of a 1953 Cadillac Le Mans sitting in the showroom of a Cadillac dealership in Maryland.
Really?
That was interesting, because up to that point, the only one I knew that was still around was the fourth, the last one that was built, and then later modified under Harley Earl supervision for the guy that it was built for, guy that was president of Fisher Body. His name escapes me right now.
Right.
Anyway, it was built for him. And Harley Earl had it updated, changed the fins, changed the 59 Cadillac engine in it. Really made a substantial difference in its styling. It looks similar, but a lot different. So I knew that was still around, and as far as I knew up to that point, it was only one of the 4 that still existed. So learned that there's still one, the original styling, still in existence.
That's really cool that because of this article that you wrote, and people wrote in, that we discovered that some of these cars still existed, which is really neat. So you You kind of cracked the case there.
Yeah, either pieces or the actual car still existed.
Yeah.
So that got me to thinking about a book. And a few
Okay.
months later, I'm starting on the book. And that's first book took a couple of years to write. First year was just kind of organizing everything I knew. Second year was a deluge of information. I never knew what was going to happen from day to day. You know, there were days just sitting at the keyboard typing, trying to find photography. And then the days where it was just, a bombshell discovery. And so it was a lot of fun. A lot of unexpected things happened to make that book come together.
And how were you getting your information?
Period references, old Motor Trend magazines that had write-ups about the cars, Car Life magazine, just, periodicals of the time.
Okay.
That was helpful. Scouring eBay, search term Motorama. Sometimes I found, original press releases. So as much period documentation as I could get. And then eventually my work led to making contact with GM Media Archive and their archive department and getting information there. So
what's it like talking to those folks?
Well, it didn't start out hopeful. As far as photography, they wanted $300 a photo.
Woo,
and I'm looking at getting 300 photos or 350 photos for a book.
That'd be a lot.
I'm not getting paid $1 million for this book. That's just
right.
I had to pay too much to write this book. I can't do that. Then they came down to only $75 a photo. Well, I mean, that's a big drop. I really discounted it. I can give them credit for that, but even at that, it's still cost prohibitive. So I'm thinking, okay, this book's dead in the water. And my editor, Dennis Adler, Car Collector, a magazine I just held up, he said, well, I know a guy at GM. Let me talk to him. And I cannot remember what department this guy headed, but fortunately, Dennis Adler and he knew each other. And he said, no, this book needs to go. This is good publicity for GM. It was just a stipulation that I do something about, GM's present cars, something that would get a little advertising, a little plug, something out of it.
Little lift. Yeah.
So I got all the pictures I needed, total cooperation, great people to work with. And I know they're there to make money. They have to. GM's in the car business, not the past. And
I understand.
To keep all that stuff on file and have a staff and a building. And so, they have to charge normally. So I don't fault them for that at all. But it turned out to be. Later I met them. I've been there a couple of times and real fine people to work with.
That's awesome. What were some of the surprising things you found out about Harley Earl that, you weren't expecting?
What I had read over the years, it almost made it, at least to me, I don't know about anybody else, but I guess a lot of people that hadn't heard of him. He'd been gone since 1969, so he wasn't spoken of anymore, and his memories had faded. But to me, it almost seemed like he was kind of a flamboyant figurehead. That was my impression. I don't know if it'd been anybody else's impression if they'd read what I read, but that's what I got out of it. And he was so much more. The man that wrote the foreword to my Harley Earl book, Ken Pickering, he said that he compared Harley Earl to the guy that ran Microsoft, Bill Gates, and then Apple.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs, compared him, Harley Earl, to Steve Jobs. He was a Steve Jobs to the automobile. Very creative mind. Guy was just into everything technology. And we know the cars that he led the design of, 55 Chevrolet, for example, 53 Corvette. But he was wanting research done by GM on turbine engines. Let's look at that. Let's see if that's practical. Would those work in an automobile? Turned out they would work, just not quite as good as internal combustion engine.
Sure.
But, nothing ventured, nothing gained. They tried. Investigated using different materials in automobile construction instead of just steel. And sometimes countries in war and materials getting kind of short supply. So is there a way to make the automobile out of something else and maybe keep it in production during a war? Not have to quit producing cars. So hence fiberglass became of interest.
Okay. Hence the Corvette.
Now, titanium was another material of interest. Magnesium was another. Magnesium's wonderful in terms of strength and weight. It's very light, very strong. But unfortunately, it's not highly durable. It corrodes, gets brittle, fragile.
Yeah.
And it's also a very terrible thing when it catches on fire. It's an awful fire.
Okay.
It was probably not a good thing to make an automobile out of, but again, it was an experiment.
Reading in your book, like when he was a kid, camping with his dad or whatever, and the rains would come into California and the soil would turn to clay and he would mold cars out of that. And then eventually that's how he molded the concept cars and the design and things like that.
Right.
That just blew my mind. So that's where it came from.
Right. Yeah. His brother relayed that information to another author, Michael Lamb. Michael Lamb, he was a good source, his books, because he got to interview those guys back in the 70s. They were nearly all of them were gone by the time I came along in 2004 starting on a Motorama book.
Right.
There weren't all that many left to talk to, but he talked to a ton of engineers. That's where the idea for clay modeling came from, was just something as simple as just rainfall and the type of soil there in California.
Right.
So when he took over his dad's business he had built horse-drawn carriages for his customers. Earl Carriage Works, I believe, was the name of the business. And then he turned that business over to his son, and it became a custom car business, Earl Automobile Works.
Because things were changing. We were going from carriages to cars.
Right. Yeah. And the Hollywood industry, the movie industry, was developing big. And so the stars of the day liked to have a custom car, and he customized a lot of cars. I wondered what happened to all those cars, because there were hundreds of them, and I can only think of one that's still in existence. I think there's yet another one. Two. There are a couple of them I know about. Fatty Arbuckle's car, I think, is
Fatty
still
Arbuckle.
around. Yeah, that's a nickname, of
what
course.
What a name.
Fatty. And then another one is in the GM Heritage Collection.
Oh, is it?
I believe it's a Cadillac. Earl was interested in a bending glass, making a wraparound windshield. I think it was about styling, but also safety, visibility, being able to have good all-around visibility.
Right.
But the glass makers of the time just could not get glass to bend. I mean, they would heat it and go through whatever processes they could think of. But every time it got to a certain point, it broke. So on this particular Cadillac I mentioned, it's got a three-piece windshield. A main piece and then side pieces that sweep back. That's as close as he could get to wrap around a windshield. It wasn't smooth, but at least it did wrap around.
Yeah, and the 1950 Bel Air had that too, right? Where they didn't quite have the technology to bend the glass yet, so they kind of had it, parceled out.
Well, yeah, I guess that's fair to say. It did have some curve there on the sides. It wasn't a true wraparound windshield. But
Yeah.
about that time, you mentioned 1950. That was pretty close to the time Lady Owens Ford figured it out and could mass produce wraparound windshields, not just like get one good one every once in a while.
Well, it's so cool because he never gave up. Like he was like, I want
Right,
this, I
right.
want this. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, GM with Sabre and the Buick XP300 were the first to showcase the wraparound windshield.
Wow.
And they got a GM had a patent on that. So I presume Ford and all the rest that had a wraparound windshield had to pay GM a royalty. I can't imagine that they didn't,
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
but they had to do it. I mean, that was styling led the way.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I could, if I could get a beautiful car as opposed to something that, will just get me there, that's not visually appealing, I'm going to get the good looking car as long as the
Right.
cost isn't a factor.
Right. And it's funny you bring that up because, like in your book about Harley Earl, cars were utilitarian. They were, they were boxes. They were point A to point B. And he changed that game. He turned that all
Right.
around.
I would specify that he brought styling to the mass-produced car. Again,
Okay.
the wealthy were very car conscious. I want a good-looking car. I want gold plating or whatever to make it look different and make it look better. But the cars you're talking about, the Model T Ford, for example, not exactly a gorgeous automobile. But
Right.
it was rugged. It was a tough automobile, and it provided good transportation for people back in the day.
Sure.
But there came a point by the 20s where everybody kind of understood the automobile, how to mass produce them, about the same level of technology, reliability. It got to the point there just wasn't that much difference from one car to the other.
Right.
And there was a guy that came along named Alfred P. Sloan Jr. who thought, why don't we make cars look good? We have cars, there's really not that much that differentiates our competition from us. He became president of General Motors. And so he asked one of the Fisher brothers, Fisher Body, which GM had acquired, Body by Fisher.
Yep.
That's one of them. Yeah, what would it take? How do we do that? How do we make cars look good? And I think it was Larry Fisher said, well, I play golf with a guy named Harley Earl out in California. When I go out there, we get together and have a good time, but he is a custom car builder. And by then he was
Wow.
with Don Lee Cadillac, who had bought his Earl Automobile Works. So he customized cars for Cadillac customers of Don Lee. And so I said, I could talk to Harley, and at this time a price gap had developed between Cadillac and Buick, Buick and Oldsmobile, and as well as Oldsmobile and Oakland. There was Chevrolet Oakland, not Pontiac. Chevrolet Oakland, Oldsmobile, Buick, Cadillac. That was a hierarchy.
Okay.
And now we have a price gap, and people that could, buy a Buick can't quite get to a Cadillac, but they could get to a competitor's car that's kind of an equal of the Cadillac, but not quite as pricey. We need to fill these price gaps. And one of those was the LaSalle, which was built by Cadillac. It was not a Cadillac LaSalle, it was a LaSalle. It's like Cadillac was Cadillac, LaSalle was LaSalle, yet LaSalle was built by the Cadillac division.
Wow. Okay.
So, and that was the same with these other, what they call companion marks. Oldsmobile had Viking, Oakland had Pontiac. Pretty much all of those companion makes were very short-lived, a couple of years. The Viking, I think, was 29 and 30, and then it was gone. Economy changed, price gaps kind of just disappeared.
Yeah.
LaSalle was the longest lived of that group, far and away longest, from 27 to 40. It was almost terminated in 34, but I mean, that's another rabbit hole we could get into. But anyway, the main point was that Sloan asked Harley Earl, design our LaSalle. So he asked a basic, an outside guy, not with GM, to design a car for General Motors.
Wow.
Unheard of, as far as I know. I don't know that anybody had ever asked some outsider like that to design a car for a major company.
Right.
And he designed their 27 LaSalle, and they were blown away by it. They offered him a job. Could you come to work for us here in Detroit and set up a styling department and style our automobiles?
Was that a hard sell? Hey, leave sunny California and come to Detroit?
I was just thinking about that. Southern California, Detroit. But
you do what you got to do.
Yeah, I don't know if it's recorded anywhere what Harley Earl's thoughts were about it, if he had to think about it a week or if he thought about it a nanosecond. But
right,
he made the right move.
Yeah,
he had a 30-year career.
Changed everything.
I mean, really, he was responsible for just pretty much every car that was built, even Ford. Because
How was
GM
that?
led the way. Well, GM led the way in styling, and the rest followed.
Okay.
Now Ford put their own. I mean, you could tell a GM car from a Ford from a Chrysler. They still remain distinctive, but
sure,
wraparound windshield, tail fins, chrome. They had to keep up with GM to stay in the sales race.
Okay.
Wow. So really, he was kind of responsible for everything that landed on four wheels.
So he gets to General Motors, and does he start turning things around right away, or how does that work? And then of course there's World War II, and
yeah, it was almost right away. Of course, by then, the 28s were pretty much set in stone. I don't think he had much impact on what the 28 models looked like. I don't think his presence was really felt until 29. And it didn't start off with a bang. It was the pregnant Buick, the 29 Buick. It's called.
That's right. I read about this.
We'd look at it now and wouldn't think, well, what's the big deal? But it was just too different from what was being built. It came out on the sides. Like, instead of being basically kind of just straight up and down, body came down and then immediately out like that.
Okay.
And we look at it and think, yeah, so what? What's your point? But
back
it was
then,
not well received. It just
too soon.
It looked kind of funny.
Yeah.
But Earl learned he needed to spend more time with the engineers. Apparently there was some miscommunication, and his ideas didn't quite get all the way through to the end product. But after that, things went well.
Okay.
Chevrolet started dominating. Ford fell to second place. Ford waited too long to change cars. They kept that Model T in from 09 to 27. And they just started getting left behind. They came out with a Model A, was much better, but they had to shut down to retool, quit producing cars.
So they shut down to basically, retool and keep up with GM?
Right. Keep up with Chevrolet, their number one competitor.
Wow.
Ford had been number one for all those years, for many, many years, almost since the earliest, days. They quickly climbed to number one with that car.
And then in the 50s, did I read in your book, is this right, that Chevy commanded like half the car market?
Right. I think it was 52% by 55, I believe.
That is crazy. And so how many manufacturers were around back then?
Well, I hadn't thought about it in terms of numbers, but you had the, as they've said, the big three and the independents. It was
Yeah.
Nash, Hudson, Studebaker,
Packard.
Packard. Um, I think I might be leaving out somebody.
Right.
I think Willis may have still been producing. Willis Aero comes to mind. I don't know what years exactly that was around, but I know Willis went to just Jeeps and that's how they survived. They got out of the cars, but there was I think, a attempt to go back to passenger car for a while. So there was that one.
Was there a moment where Harley Earl was like, these cars need to go faster? Or did that not matter to him? Because I know that Chevy waited until, 55 to put the V8 in.
Yeah, it mattered. He just, let's make it better. Somehow make cars better every year. Just do something to make them better. And the horsepower race, it caught on with the public.
Sure.
Straight eight engines, lots of torque. They weren't very fast, but they move cars pretty well. You're
Right.
not out there on an Indy 500 going to work. But people have egos. They some of them at least like to think they have the fastest car on the road.
Of course. Yeah.
It just feels good. Whether you take advantage of it or not, it's just fun to know you've got 400 horsepower under the hood, or whatever it happened to be at the time. And it was a selling point. 180 horsepower. The first small block, the power pack. 4-barrel, 180 horsepower. It too sold cars. Styling, the V8 engine, automatic transmissions, power steering. I think it was, power brakes. I think that's just pretty much the order of things that sold cars.
Right.
And Chevrolet had to keep up with the change. The others, Cadillac had a V8 since '49. And Pontiac and Chevrolet are the only ones that still stuck with their antiquated engines.
Straight six.
Yeah, and Chevrolet was losing ground to Ford, so they had to do something. And small block came along.
Mm-hmm. And then when did the two-tone paint start with the cars that Harley Earl was designing?
There was some two-toning back in the 40s, post-war era.
Okay. Post-war.
It really got, I think it really got to be a major option, two-tone paint back around starting, I'd say, about 54.
Okay.
I can picture, Oldsmobile, 54 Oldsmobile and two-tone paint.
Yeah.
I think that's when it really started to catch on and be a dominant thing on cars. Two-tone paint was just around the early part of the mid-50s.
Yeah. And it's neat because people today, like when you go to a car show, they're like, wow, it's so neat how it's got two different colors. Most people just are not used to that. They've never seen that before. And it's so neat. I'm like, oh yeah, a lot of cars back then were two-tone paint.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just paint, two-tone or multi-tone. Not just two-tone, but multi-tone interiors.
Yeah, the interiors. Now, did he have influence on the interiors?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was responsible. He had a team. He had people that were assigned to interiors, exterior and interior. So, yeah, he was in charge of seeing to all of that. He didn't really do any design himself. The legend is he couldn't draw. He could draw, but he couldn't draw near as well as the designers that worked for him.
Sure. Okay.
So he couldn't draw like them, but he could express what he wanted. But he would do it with his own language. He had kind of his own lingo, and designers had to figure out that lingo, what he meant.
Okay.
And but the ones that could do what he wanted stayed, and the ones that could not went to work somewhere else. And some of those that went somewhere else, they were very capable. Virgil Exner started under Harley Earl in the 30s, and then he became head of the styling department over Chrysler. Again, Harley Earl,
Okay.
responsible for the designs of Chrysler cars in a sense, as the guy that headed up their styling department, which they didn't have before Harley Earl came along and set one up
Right.
at GM.
Right.
He headed the Chrysler department, and the $1 million look, the 55 Chryslers came out under his leadership. So he made Chrysler. Chrysler got stodgy. Cars just really weren't pretty.
Yeah.
President of the company, K.T. Keller, thought, person should be able to, the man should be able to wear his hat in an automobile. That was part of fashion, wearing a hat back in the day, very common. So the
Sure.
car needed to have hat clearance, not just, headroom, but hat room.
That's so funny.
So the cars were, kind of tall, a little disproportionate.
Yeah.
Exner had learned under Earl and took over Chrysler's styling department and made a major splash with the 55 Chrysler line.
And speaking of Chrysler, so they were the ones who, had the fins that, when GM saw them, as I think it was in your book, somebody brought one of the big fin Chryslers into GM, and Harley went on vacation, and he came back and he was looking at the car, and they go, "What do you think?" And Harley goes, "I wouldn't piss on it."
Yeah. That was a Virgil Exner design. You're talking about the 57. It was either Chrysler or Plymouth. I believe it may have been a Plymouth.
Oh, the Plymouth. Okay.
Yeah. That was a story that Ken Pickering told me. That he quoted Earl as with that. So that's how that landed in my book.
What a great story.
But Harley Earl, he had I think 32-year career, 31, 32 years with GM, and he batted 1,000 for a long time. But toward the end, he kind of lost his way. He had done the aviation themed stuff. That's the inspiration for the styling. Fins, wraparound windshields were inspired by jet aircraft canopies, and it was all aviation inspiration with tail fins, and it kind of used that about as far as it could go. And it's like kind of like I don't really know what else to do.
Right.
And the lean looking Chryslers and Plymouths just were kind of a shock to him. But the designers that worked for him knew, hey, what we're doing for scheduling for 59, this just isn't going to work. This is what we need to do, is more like what Chrysler's turning out. And he just couldn't really adapt to that. But he didn't get fired. He reached the age of 65, and it was a mandatory retirement age. Didn't matter if you're president of the company. 65, you retire.
Wow.
And he hit that age in November of 58, and he left at the end of November of 58.
Okay. So was the last car that he had, design influence on, would that have been like the 60?
Yeah, essentially you'd say the 60. The 60s were toned down 59s. And with a 2.5 year, I had that one at one time. I don't know what I did with it.
I think I stole it.
Yeah, that's where it is. He'd let his handpicked successor take over and rework the 59s. The 59s were going in a terrible direction. It's like, I can't believe this is under Harley Earl. Headlights centered, 4 headlight setups, but with the inboard lights in the center of the grill stacked, one on top of the other. Four tail fins, two parallel tail fins on each side.
Yikes.
Fin down the trunk. Just really, and bulbous, very rounded, bulbous shapes.
Yeah.
Not very attractive designs at all. The four tail fins survived. They landed on a '59 Pontiac. They weren't radical fins, but that's one of the few things that came through from Harley Earl's time working on the '59s.
It's what cracks me up is that because I've got a '59 Impala that I take to car shows, and I still get the story every once in a while. They're like, "Oh, yeah, these things would start to take off. You know, the faster you went." I'm like, "No, they did not. Those cars would not take off." Junior Johnson drove around Daytona Speedway in a '59 Biscayne at 125 miles an hour. That car never took off. Like,
No.
it didn't happen.
No, manufacturers tried to say, that the fins help with stability of the automobile. They gave a scientific reason. It was for styling.
Yeah.
They may have actually helped in a crosswind situation if you're running about 90, 100 miles an hour.
Right.
They have actually stabilized the car some, but going down the highway at 75, 80, they just look good.
They do look good. They look so cool. And I know that there was a period of time, especially for the '59 Impala, that it was just a love-hate. People either loved them or they hated them. But now, I mean, you get that car out and people are just like, they're just wowed. They're just so awed by it. And why do you think that is? Just because it's so unique and that was the pinnacle of the fins?
Yeah. Looking back, people, they've seen cars that look pretty much exactly the same. They haven't seen cars that were that distinctive. Most of those cars are all gone. So when they see it, it's really very different for them.
Yeah.
Of course, back then they were just my car.
Right.
I go to work in it. They didn't think, hey, I own a classic.
Right. Right.
You said, hey, that's a classic car. What do you mean?
What do you mean?
It's just a car. It's like today. It's just my car.
Yeah.
But when you compare a modern car with that, modern car, as far as I'm concerned, has no styling, no visual appeal. The old cars, everything was styled. The taillight bezels, the knobs on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing stylish about. Well, of course, they've done away with knobs on radios. This touchscreen, it's basically a little computer in the center of the dash.
Right.
I mean, they don't. They spent time styling every facet, everything but the screws. And some cases that was styled a little bit. They might chrome plate them.
Yeah. Yeah, even the speaker grill on the '59 Impala or even the '55 Bel Air, there's design to that speaker grill.
Yeah. I just photographed a car the other day for Old Cars magazine, a '66 Impala sport sedan, four-door hardtop. He has a rear window defogger, and the grill for that, even it's kind of got a little style to it.
Does it really?
I mean, today, I really don't know what style. I know there's got to be, people designing cars, but I wish maybe this interview will get me some feedback. I really would be interested to know what they do when, their coefficient of drag is your number one consideration on the design. It must meet that. It's got to meet a miles per gallon and requirement. And like I said, it's a federal regulation. They're so constrained on what they can do.
Right.
I wonder what it is that they are able to do.
Going back to Harley and the fins, so is that was aircraft inspired, correct? World War II aircraft?
Yes. The 48 Cadillac was the first to have fins. First of Gen's cars to have fins. There's an exception. There was a custom car from years before, I can't think of the year, 35 or something, that put some tail fins on it, but that was not something that the manufacturer did.
Right.
As far as mass-produced automobiles, 48 Cadillac was the first to have the tail fins. Those little stubby fins, they just shaped like that. That was
Yeah.
inspired by the P-38.
Okay.
Lockheed P-38 Lightning. And Harley Earl and some of his design team got a look at that airplane at Selfridge Air Force Base, which is not far from Detroit, and got some ideas for styling.
Did they go see it in private?
Yeah, I think it was at the time, I think the plane was still considered, I don't know, I was going to say secret, but I think there'd been quite a bit of write-ups about it. I don't think it was really secret, but being able to get close to it, I think that was restricted.
Got it.
I don't think anybody could have, I couldn't have done it. Like, hey, I want to look at that. Well, you're going to look from way back there if you look,
Right.
You got a bit close to it.
Sure.
Well, the reason it wasn't that he was just so special, the force of his personality or whatever got him there. GM had a contract making the Allison engines that P-38 and other aircraft used. So they had the Allison division. So there was his in to get on the base and look at the plane up close.
And so that just kind of like, you know what, we'll take design cues from this thing and we'll find a way to make these cars look like jet aircraft.
Yeah, of course, prop aircraft at the time. The jet came along later, but then the jet influenced the automobile too.
Yeah. Well, particular on the 60, right? There's a little jet on the side here.
Yep. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Jet engines, the contrail. You look up, you see that whole white streak, contrail.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing right there is your jet engine with the contrail behind it.
Well, David, I thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. I want to bring you back because I think we could probably do a whole episode on the Corvette, and just how they got into that. But we'll save that for another time. But
okay,
really, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Sure, it's been fun. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, David.
All right, see you later.